Well, I was hoping for better conditions before doing a garden tour video, but we're not getting better conditions, so I'm just gonna do this now. I'm gonna start off with the transplants that we have remaining. Now, it is currently June 16, Father's Day. Happy Daddy's Day, everybody. And this is what we've got left for the things that need to be transplanted. There's 4 melons left in here. There was 21. We'll see later. This is a Summer of Melons blend. And over here we have what's left of San Marzano tomatoes that need to be transplanted. The tray got knocked over. It fell over, and so they're not doing too well. And then they just not doing too well. Okay, we've got some more melons left over here. These are ones we actually know the names of. That is some butterfly bush, those flowers, and we've got yellow onions and shallots left. They're going to be planted kind of in between other things as we're able. So I'm going to start off in the jungle that is our old kitchen garden. We have not really been able to keep up with things, but this rhubarb here is the best we've seen since we've moved out here. I'll start off with our garlic planted in the fall. So all along in this one bed here is the garlic, and then over here, and then I planted, we have not been able to do anything with these paths this year. Garlic over here, and then the last of it I planted in the middle of this bed over here. Not as many came up out of this bed, but the fall garlic has done quite well. In this bed, in the plastic rings, are Forme Decor tomatoes, and these stakes here are holding the plastic rings in place to protect them and make it easier to water, and eventually there'll be the supports. I also planted Red of Florence onions around the edges here, and the ends, and shallots around the long end. The cats keep lying on it. I put these forks and stuff in there and they still keep lying on it. But so that's this bed over here. And then if we go over to the wattle weave bed, these are black cherry tomatoes. These strawberries were the strawberries we grew from seed last year. More onions that the cats have been lying on. We've got our German winter thyme. And over here is chamomile that seeded itself. And more onions that have been smushed. More of the strawberries that were grown from seed last year. There was one little pepper over here and it got dug up. And these are loofah. We actually got 6 of them this year. And a couple more little pepper plants that were thinned out and transplanted here, and they didn't make it either. This is not where I planned to plant the San Marzano tomatoes, but I needed a space, and this is a space that was ready. I got one over here that's even blooming. And so in between with the mint, we've got the San Marzano, and there's some of them that have onions that survived from last year. And hopefully we'll have some nice San Marzano tomatoes this year. And the chives coming up beautifully as always. One last little tomato hiding in here. Some really huge rhubarb that could do with some harvesting. Oh, this area is out of control. Believe it or not, this got weed whacked not too long ago. We got the walking onions, self-sown poppies, and dill in here. There's supposed to be some bulbs coming up, but not at all this year. This is a big mess. And if I can get in here, these are supposed to be double daffodils, but they're just being completely crowded out. There should actually be more of them, but that's all that came up this spring. We haven't even been able to do much lawn mowing this year. My daughter managed to get some of this done. This is all full of water. Oh, but hey, the grape is getting decent water this year. And oh, would you look at that? I'm going to be getting grapes. Eventually, I'd like to transplant these 2 grapes to a completely different area. It's getting crowded out by the spirea and a whole bunch of other things. It's just not a good spot for it. But all in good time. Another area that was flooded. We got so much rain just last night. This is from last night. There was no water. Well, it was wet, but there was no water here last night. Oh, there's a cat hiding there. And this was supposed to be my poppy bed. I never got a chance to clear it out, and it's just completely overgrown. It is possible that poppies self-seeded in here, but if they did, they're crowded out by everything else. I wanted to get at least some summer squash planted. So in these pots, this one over here has white patty pans, which are new to us. And then these 2 pots have, one has Endeavour zucchini, which is a green zucchini, and this one has Magda squash. So the zucchini here. And nothing's coming up yet. I'm actually going to go around the outside of the fence here to show what's going on here. Normally all this would be mowed and weed whacked right up to the fence, and it's just, I'm splashing as I walk here. So these are, which one? These are the chocolate cherry tomatoes. These blocks had to be completely reworked. When I was starting to weed them this spring, they turned out to be absolutely full of elm tree roots. So I had to redo them completely. Our soil is very alkaline. I was able to supplement sulfur granules to try and improve that. And there was one empty space, and I planted some goldy yellow zucchini in there. And as for this netting is here just to protect the beds from the elm tree seeds so they don't get suffocated. Alright, here we have a bed that was completely reworked. I had to make it narrower so we could better reach. And then I ended up planting potatoes in it because they needed to go in and this bed was ready. Now on this side, we actually have red thumb potatoes that were left over from last year. And they're doing really well considering they were in pretty bad shape when I put them in. And these over here were purple Carib potatoes. And got some coming up here. And then absolutely nothing. And oh, there's a lettuce that showed up. So nothing. And then we have like one over here and then one at the end. And I'm not sure what's happened to all the others. I mean, it could have something to do with all the water we've had this spring. But if that were true, then I wouldn't have one right here, would I? Like, we do have plenty of water. And yeah, the wind just rips this out completely, but at least it's fixed to the fence properly and it still protects from the elm seeds, at least somewhat. Okay, here we have our purple asparagus bed. We should have been able to harvest for the first time this year, and that's just not happening. It's just this turned out to be oh my goodness, that wind. This turned out to be a really bad spot for it. I think the crowns are just being drowned out. But the strawberries are surviving, at least, you know, when they're not getting eaten by deer, which is why we have these posts here. Even the asparagus got chomped on, you can see. But that's all the asparagus that came up this year, just a few little strands. Over here, the sunchokes have come up. Last year I did not harvest any sunchokes at all. I left them specifically to have hopefully a better harvest this year. And this is what we've got so far. Okay, so we've made our way through the moat to get to these beds over here. This first one here is German butterball potatoes. And I've got this cover on it, not so much for any sort of need for the potatoes, but it needs to be stored someplace off the ground for starters, and it kind of sort of keeps the cats off a little bit. This next bed has not been doing as well as I'd hoped. Just get around this water over here. Got some onions planted here that had overwintered elsewhere. There's spinach in here that is not doing well at all. There's just some that have gotten bigger. We should be harvesting spinach right now, but we've just had this going on. The carrots are very slowly coming up. In the middle are sugar snap peas. I actually planted 2 rows, and out of those 2 rows, like 3 or 4 have come up. And then I did a second planting, and that row is what you see here. And we've got this on here, and we've got the trellis netting in the middle, and then I've got this netting around it to keep things out. Unfortunately, it wasn't long enough to go all the way around, so the cats are getting in and using this as a litter box. We have to get some longer netting to wrap around here. Now we've got an experiment happening with this box bed over here, and the high winds. I'm honestly amazed that this thing has not just blown away. It is attached pretty firmly to these posts, so that's probably the only thing saving it, but the plastic is still there. The plastic has only been attached at the top so that we could lift the bottoms and tend the bed, but unfortunately they kind of get blown in there. But it's the best we can do for now. What we've got in here are, you can get it to focus. Okay, we've got, these would be, I believe, the little finger eggplant at this end. We've got the hot peppers in here, and then we have classic eggplant in here. And the idea is that the plastic is like a sort of mini greenhouse to protect these heat-loving plants from the elements, and it seems to be doing okay, except for, you know, this part. And this cover on top is just, it's really here just for storage, but it comes in handy too. Okay, we've got another little bit of an experiment here. This is a new box bed that was made this year. We've actually tried growing in this spot before unsuccessfully, and now that things are raised up, I think we might actually have better luck. These are the Crespo squash were transplanted in here. Hang on, I'm trying to not step in too much mud here. So hopefully they'll get nice and big, and I'm going to train them to grow out the sides. And on each side here we have planted green pole beans, Seychelles beans, that should climb up the netting and help protect and shade the Crespo squash. And this Crespo squash will hopefully keep the weeds down. Except if you look a little closer, these little green things are absolutely everywhere. They hopefully will be easy to pull out. Okay, before I go into the main garden area, I figured I'd show the tulip patch. Believe it or not, this did get weeded. We had some tulips blooming in here, and we had some tulips appear that we didn't expect to see because we figured the bulbs had died, but they showed up for the first time. They're in here somewhere. They did not bloom though. And then here, this is where the saffron crocuses are. And then if we come around, this is the Liberty apple tree. You can see it better from this side. I've got it wrapped around up to the branches, and it'll be a couple years before we get any apples from here. It's a zone 4 apple tree. We're zone 3, but it did survive the winter, so we'll see how that works out. Now this has been a pretty difficult spring to work in. We've had so much rain without breaks in between long enough to get much done. But we've got some done at least, so I'll just start from this end. This is the first of what will be a series of trellis beds. So these are onions that we found elsewhere and transplanted here, so they've overwintered. And they should go to seed. Over here I've planted some purple bush beans. And then all along this side here, all that water, this is why we have raised beds. These are from a Summer of Melons blend. And so we don't know what they are. The 4 that are in the sunroom that still need to be transplanted are part of this group. And yeah, we didn't have enough netting to cover the whole thing, but the netting is to protect it from things like driving rain. And it seems to have, I don't know, these guys seem to be holding out all right. So as these get bigger, we're going to be attaching poles. They're in here, prepped and ready, debarked. They just need to be permanently attached. Yeah, all of this area is normally mowed and we just can't get into it. It's awful. Yeah, so we're gonna attach those to this side here, and I'm tripping over some logs, and we'll make a permanent trellis, and eventually we're gonna build a matching bed right over here. I've given up trying to pick these up because they just fall over. There's rocks underneath. So another bed is going to be here, and there will be a trellis arch in between them eventually. Over here we have African drum gourds. I stuck them in here because they should get big, and eventually we're going to put another raised bed over here. And these water bottles are, you can fill them to the top and they slowly water at the roots. And then over here are a couple of pumpkins. We got free seeds from the town my mother lives in. They were giving them out, and they want to encourage people to enter pumpkins into their pumpkin fest. But I just want to grow pumpkins and see how they turn out. In here we have all of our peppers. We've got, let's see, which ones are these? Early what? Okay, this is early summer. 3 of these. And then these ones are, what are they? Sweet chocolate, these 2. And then there's 4 early sensation here. And then we've got 3, which one are these? Oh, no, so those ones are Purple Beauty. These ones are sweet chocolates. There's 3 sweet chocolates. And then these last ones at the end are, what are you? Dragonfly. These are a purple one as well. And eventually they're going to be interplanted with some of those onions and shallots that are in the sunroom. As you can see, we haven't finished prepping all these beds, and it was my daughter suggested, because these basically need to be completely turned over to try and get the weeds and roots out. She suggested that we just go ahead and put the beds in their permanent locations. And that is what has been started over here. So all of these markers that you see are 4 feet apart on this side. And the other row over there is 18 feet. So we're going to have 4 feet by 18 foot beds. And the paths will be 4 feet wide. And this is how much rain we had last night. So this is the first of the beds that has its frame, but we're not going to put it together quite yet. What I want to do is put cardboard or something underneath and on the paths, and then cover everything with wood chips. So once we have that to put underneath, then we'll adjust the logs to where they need to be and then permanently attach them to each other. Meanwhile, this bed in the middle has our winter squash planted. These are, they're called a wild bunch mix, so we don't know what they are. They're all vining type, and they are all short season edible varieties, and we'll see what we get. And this way, try these new things, and we'll find different varieties that we enjoy, and we'll go from there. Rolando, get off my garden bed. So on this side, beside Rolando, I've got shelling peas, Dalve peas planted. And then on this side, I've got Carmenat pole beans, which is a purple bean. And after they've started to grow, we'll put trellis netting on these supports. And then the beans will protect the squash, and the squash will protect the beans. At least that's the theory. We don't have any more prepared logs to put around the other beds. So this one, basically I used those boards over there to mark off where the logs would be, and then built the bed inside them. And in here we have the last of the winter squash, and in between I've planted Yukon Chief corn. And this is a variety of corn that only needs 55 days. It is a sweet corn, and it's a very fast, short season type of corn, which is about all we can grow this year. It has taken me forever to get on this bed in particular. It's the worst of them, and what I've managed to do is break fresh ground, and then of the existing bed, the soil has been shifted over on top of the rest of it, and it's so full of weeds. All I could do was turn the sod upside down on itself. I laid cardboard down on top, then put the boards to frame it out, got some old straw scattered on top of the cardboard, and then grass clippings on top of that. And what I'd hoped to be able to do at this point was sift the soil that I was pulling out over here and put it back on the bed. And I mean, it needs to be done to a certain extent. Some of it I won't be able to use at all. We've got thick mats of creeping Charlie in here, and those roots, you just can't get them out. But we can get out rhizomes and dandelion taproots and that sort of thing. So that's the bed in progress that is taking way too long. I should have been able to do basically one of these a day, and it hasn't been happening because of the weather, really. Just a few of the rocks I got out of there. So yeah, once this is done, we'll be able to plant the rest of those melons and tomatoes into here, and then we need to work on these, shift them over, and hopefully be able to get some direct seeding done before it's just too late. Here we have some new strawberries got from Vessie's. These are an ever-bearing strawberry, and according to the instructions, ever-bearing strawberries do not need to have their blossoms pulled off in their first year the way other types do. And it was an order of 8. We got 9, but one of them didn't make it. This used to be a squash hill from a few years back, and I had to reclaim it, and it was absolutely filled with elm tree roots, which is a real problem with all of those beds that we've been working on. The north end of the beds have been full of elm tree roots from here. These should never have been allowed to grow here. They're all self-seeded, and there have been attempts made to get rid of them. I can see tree stumps and stuff like that, but they just kept growing back. But the plan is to actually get rid of all of these because they're killing things. Trees are not always a good thing. It all depends on how they're done. But yeah, here we have some strawberries, and since I've pulled as many of the roots out that I can, hopefully we'll actually get some berries this year. As for this area here, I'm not even going to try and go out there. We've got the silver buffalo berry, they're coming up. There are 2 sea buckthorn surviving that came up. The high bush cranberry has survived, they're coming up. There were 3 purple raspberries, only 1 has survived and is coming up. And then there's a lot of water in here. And in here is where we need to harvest more dead trees for the frames on the raised beds. But yeah, it's really hard to get in there. Like, you can't cut trees down because it's too windy. And when we do have ones that we can process, it's just been too rainy or too hot or like it's just been insane. The crab apples did bloom. We should get crab apples this year. And I think I'm just gonna have to go over this area with the weed trimmer because I'm tired of breaking lawnmowers. It's just so rough and awful in here. But yeah, this is what we've got so far. I got a lot of work to do if the weather will allow us. It's gonna be a weird year this year. This happened like 30 seconds ago. We are so lucky that didn't fall in the garage. Well, the wind that took down that tree, I was in the process of trying to fix the plastic that was around this when I heard the cracking noise. So this has been weighted down to keep the paper and cardboard mulch, but that's the only thing we can do at this point.